Good evening and welcome. My name is Paul Chapman. I'm Dean of the College of Education and Human Services, and I'd like to recognize a few special guests this evening. Some donors and alumni, Dr. and Mrs. Jim Gussett, Marvin and Lee Scott, Dr. Nancy Vick, and Mr. Joseph Vick. Thank you for coming this evening. If you'd please stand and say hello to us. Everyone give them a round of applause. We have division superintendents here this evening, Dr. Amy Griffin, Dr. David Smith, Dr. Jim Thornton, and Dr. Daniel Grenard. If you're here, please, let's give them a thank you and welcome. We have VEA chapter representatives, Vince Kesner, Cumberland Vice President, Janet Owens, Charlotte County Secretary, Nichelle Mosley Harris, Charlotte County Treasurer. Please rise. Let's recognize them. From the College of Education and Human Services and the Cook-Cole College of Arts and Sciences, Dr. Pat Lust, Dr. Peggy Tarpley, Dr. Stephen Keith. Please rise. Let's say thank you to them for coming this evening. The 5 Student Virginia Education Association Executive Committee members and the Student Virginia Education Association members, please rise and let's stand and recognize them too. Thank you all for coming. And special guests, especially President Reevely, Provost Ken Perkins, Dr. Ken Copeland, and Catherine Copeland. Catherine's a longtime VEA member. Victoria Kindon, Brenda Adkins, and Justin Pope, our leadership team here. Please rise. Let's say thank you to them. Tonight we continue our year-long 175th anniversary celebration. And we bring to you our third in our series of Longwood Leadership Forum Speaker Series. Meg Gruber, an earth science teacher at Forest Park High School in Prince William County, became president of the Virginia Education Association on August 1st, 2012, assuming the highest elected office of the 56,000-member group, the largest and oldest professional organization serving public schools and public school educators in the Commonwealth. Before coming to Prince William, she began her teaching career of 30 years plus in Delaware. As a longtime association activist, President Gruber has also served as president of the Prince William Education Association and as a member of the board of directors for the National Education Association and the VEA. Along the way to those positions, she also served as vice president of both the VEA and the PWEA, president of VEA's District 9, a member of the executive committee of the VEA Fund for Children and Public Education, and as an association delegate to more than 20 conventions of both the VEA and the NEA. She has also been part of the numerous VEA statewide committees over the years, serving on the membership, budget, legislative, resolutions, and executive committees. President Gruber holds a master's degree from the University of Delaware and a bachelor's degree from Clarion University in Pennsylvania. Please help me make welcome President Meg Gruber.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, sir, for the kind introduction. Sorry it was so long, but you know how it is with teachers. We just do and do and do and keep doing. I'm delighted to have the opportunity to speak with you today about public education and about the Virginia Education Association, because in fact, our respective organizations not only share a dedication to the cause of learning, we're also celebrating some very significant anniversaries. Longwood University, of course, is celebrating its 175th year of distinguished service as a leader in higher education in Virginia. And the VEA, which was founded in 1863, is wrapping up its own 150th anniversary celebration. Now, as part of our anniversary, we've been digging into the VEA's past, and one of our retired staff members is actually researching and writing a book about the association history that will be up to be published later this year. And you might be surprised, as I was, at the significant influence your leaders here at Longwood have had on VEA, and that VEA had on the establishment of the State Female Normal School in Farmville, which is now Longwood University. I'll give you a couple of examples to illustrate. The forerunner to VEA, the Educational Association of Virginia, was launched by a small group of men gathered in Petersburg amid the chaos of the Civil War in 1863. Virginia at that time had no system of public education, no formal structure for education for those who would be teachers. The convention they held in Petersburg in 1863 set in motion the creation of an organization whose purpose was, in their words, to promote the educational welfare of Virginia and the whole country. And one of the men sitting at the table was Mr. Arnaud Perrault, a native of France and the president of the Farmville Female College. So you see, your predecessors were involved in the very creation of our association, and it doesn't end there. Virginia public education has many heroes, but I'm not sure any had the influence of the Reverend Dr. William Henry Ruffner. Dr. Ruffner is considered the Horace Mann of Virginia and is truly the founder of Virginia Public Schools. Now, we all know that progress in public matters can be painfully slow. Our government is too characterized by gridlock, and it can take years, if not decades, for ideas to become plans and then finally be realized. But here's what Dr. Ruffner did when in 1870 he accepted the challenge of the Virginia General Assembly to propose a system of public education to serve Virginia. He completed his proposal in only 30 days. Then he had a nice long stretch, 90 days, to do the following. He recruited and hired nearly 100 county superintendents. He helped form school boards with over 4,000 trustees. He located 3,047 school buildings, and he employed 3,069 teachers. So what's our connection to this great pioneer? Dr. Ruffner, the father of public education in Virginia, was the 13th president of Longwood University, and also the 8th president of the Virginia Education Association. I am proud to say that I walk in his footsteps as the current president of VEA, and I bet President Reveille would do the same. What an honor it is to have been guided by someone of such wisdom and character. It takes vision and leaders willing to pursue it for institutions to survive to their 150th or their 175th year. And the fact that both Longwood University and the VEA are thriving today is testimony to the fact that each has remained true to their vision of education, learning, leadership, and expanding opportunity. Before I move to some of education's current challenges and opportunities, I want to draw your attention to the fact that, although our vision has remained steadfast, the public education landscape has changed dramatically. In a world in which history is made with the speed of a cell phone video or a tweet, it's important to pause and reflect on just how far we've come. Ponder, if you will, for a moment this remarkable fact. It's now accepted by almost everyone that a free public education serves as the foundation for success and prosperity that we envision for our children when they graduate. That seems clear as the air that we breathe, yet it is a radical and relatively new and recent invention. Public schools in Virginia have struggled for support, both monetary and otherwise, since they were first established in 1870. The first schools were poorly funded. Teachers often went unpaid. Dr. Ruffner knew this all too well and fought very hard to build broader support. Everyone now acknowledges the importance of a high school diploma, but it wasn't until the 40s that even 50% of our students graduated from high school. The U.S. Supreme Court ruling in Brown versus Board of Education in 1954 spelled out the obligation we had to serve the children of color, but separate and unequal school systems for black and white children persisted well into the 60s, and in some cases even beyond. Here in Prince Edward County, resistance to the board decision was so strong that the public schools actually closed for 5 years. White students went to private academies, and black students were left to scramble to find school or go untaught. To the younger people here in the audience, that may be nearly impossible to fathom. I know it is for me. But it's a fact, and it's really not that long ago, just a few decades. But look how much has changed since then. The past 40 years have been marked by our commitment to expanding opportunities to all: disadvantaged students, students with special needs, children whose parents have come here hoping for a better life. And we've done all that while raising educational standards. And our aspirations continue to grow even higher. What the members of the Virginia Education Association undertake each and every day is, when you think about it, breathtaking and audacious. Few other countries have ever attempted what we do, but we have, and I'm proud to be part of a profession that does not rest until we raise each child and every child to fulfill his or her potential to the fullest. And as I thought about the opportunity to speak with you today, one thing I knew for sure that I wanted to convey to you: what the teachers and the bus drivers and the cafeteria workers and the counselors and the secretaries and the instructional aides who are our members are seeing in their schools and their communities. I've met with the people who work in public schools every day. They email me, they call me, they text me, they Twitter me, they reach out on Facebook. And I'm happy to say that their passion for educating students burns as bright as it did the moment they considered joining our profession. Our members are dedicated to doing their very best for our children. I believe it's in our DNA, and it's our life's work. And we're very good at it. Virginia is rated 4th best state for public education in the journal Education Week. Our students score near the top compared to other states on many subjects tracked by the nation's report card. 90% of students who entered high school in 2009 graduated this past spring on time, and the vast majority of schools in Virginia are fully accredited. But if the passion of our members still burns bright, they are increasingly challenged to deliver on the promise that public education holds for Virginia's children. We need to talk honestly about these challenges if we're going to get on with overcoming them. And what are those obstacles that stand in our way? Let me single out a few. The first and most pressing of our challenges is poverty. The number of students in our classroom who are poor is rising, not falling as it should be in this country. In the United States today, 1 in 4 children live below the poverty line. In Virginia, the rate of poverty is not quite so high, but 280,000 children in the Commonwealth live in poverty and endure all that goes on with that. Our public schools bear the fallout of this calamity every day. Poor children are far more likely to be absent from school and more likely to have health problems that children from middle class and wealthy families don't have. They're more likely to have developmental delays or learning disabilities. They're less likely to graduate from high school. They're less likely to go on to college. And if they get here, they're less likely to finish and earn their degree. But let me be clear, being born in poverty does not sentence a child to a life of low educational attainment and unemployment as an adult. We have too many examples to the contrary. But neither can we deny the powerful and pernicious effects of poverty on education and the future prospects of our young. Our members are routinely providing food and school supplies to students who are hungry and whose family lack the resources to buy pens, papers, notebooks, calculators. I haven't been in the classroom these last 2 years, but every time there's a major sale at Staples for school supplies, I figure out where can I buy and who can I give them to them now, because I no longer have a classroom to provide that to. It's become part of who I am, which is buying school supplies for children who need them. They offer extra assistance to students who have fallen behind because their families have moved 3 times in a single year. Still, the number of poor students continues to climb. According to the U.S. Census, the number of children of poverty has gone up another 5% since the beginning of this Great Recession. And the fallout from high child poverty touches all Virginians. In 2012, the Educational Testing Service issued a new report on poverty and education. It documented that children growing up in poverty complete less schooling, have poor health, are more likely to receive public assistance, and will earn less as adults. It's also estimated that the national cost of child poverty on our society is $500 billion each year in fewer taxes paid and other expenses. I want to impress upon you, no matter how much we believe in the power of public education, we cannot do it alone. All of us, educators, parents, community organizations, elected officials, we all must be part of that solution. Second challenge I see is the growing corruption of education by excessive testing. Teachers have been testing students since before the days of slate and chalk. And to be honest, for those of us that are teachers, some of our students also test us on a daily basis. But tests are useful at giving us a gauge as to what students know and what they can do. But they have limits. They can give a snapshot, but they cannot give a complete picture of a child. What has happened in the past decade is that the accountability movement has caused a rapid rise in the number of standardized, multiple choice tests that students take, and has led to very high stakes being attached to the result of those tests. And that's had several counterproductive effects. For one, the curriculum that we teach our students has become more limited and focused on the kinds of skills and knowledge that goes on those standardized tests. Teachers have dropped many of the enriching activities they used to do, and now too often are forced to teach the test. In this new world, students have become little more than data generators, and teachers are becoming nothing but data analysts. We are beginning to lose the humanity of our profession. We want education to be much more than that, and I'm sure that you do too. I want you to think back right now to your greatest learning experience and breakthrough that you ever had when you were a student, or the most positive experience of any kind you had while in school. Chances are it had nothing to do with the test, and everything to do with a rich topic that you lost yourself in, or a special teacher or a coach who believed in you when you didn't even believe in yourself. But it wasn't about that test or that test score. We stand to continue to lose those kind of experiences when we obsess over tests and test results. And if we do that, we lose the very richness of learning itself. We can't let that happen. And I'm pleased to report that some of our political leaders are finally hearing this message. The General Assembly has just passed new legislation cutting the number of standards of learning tests and creating a group to examine the SOLs, our standards of learning, and their proper role. This is very good news, and we as educators should be leading that charge. I want to make myself clear. Our teachers are not calling for an end of testing. But what we do need is to bring back balance in our schools. The best testing programs give us information that we can use to change how we're teaching so that students learn the material. When you have thousands of teachers teaching to a test that everyone agrees doesn't provide a full picture of student growth, then the tail is truly wagging the dog and we all get bitten. We need to fight against this overdependence on tests before we lose any more of this rich learning experience that many of us in this room who are older remember from our time in the classroom. Unfortunately, too many of you are students don't know what I'm talking about because you've never been taught when there weren't SOLs. I was giving a speech in Richmond, and I had a VCU student come up to me afterwards, and he said, "You know, you're right. I'm really good at multiple choice tests, but I'm really struggling in college because I don't have multiple choice tests to take." He says, "Now I'm getting help and I'm doing okay." And I looked at him and I apologized to him. He said, "Why? You didn't do it." I said, "No, but I was part of it, and I don't think I fought hard enough for you." But all of us are continuing to fight harder now for our students. The third challenge is getting our leaders to commit to provide the funding, not just the lip service, required for a truly great system of public schools in Virginia, including public higher ed. The VEA works extremely hard at the General Assembly to try to get the state to fulfill its responsibility with regard to funding our public schools. One of the reasons we have to work so hard is that the folks at the state capitol often find it convenient to shortchange public schools in favor of other interests. Since 2009, the state's funding of our K-12 public schools per pupil has gone down 20% when you factor in inflation. That represents a huge backsliding on the part of the state at a time when local governments can't make up that gap. The state has also been changing its funding formula for schools in an effort to cut costs. That has meant a loss of $1.6 billion for K-12 public schools in the last few years. What happens when education funding falls short? Kids get shortchanged. Class sizes go up. Electives and a whole bunch of valuable programs start going on the chopping block. School facilities and equipment begin to fall apart. And those budget cuts also endanger the great folks in front of every classroom. Virginia has prided itself on being a great state to teach in, and our teachers certainly produce great results. But I'm hearing from more and more teachers that they can't afford to stay in education as they start families because the pay is too low. The average salary of Virginia teachers is $7,456 below the national average. In most of our communities, teachers work in the classroom for 10 years and still make under $45,000 a year. And that's a starting salary for many college graduates in other fields. And one word of caution, don't just look at the salary. Because if there's a much higher salary, make sure you guys check out the cost of living there. Make sure you can afford to have a place to live in those places. Now, we don't get into this for the money. That's obviously true. But a state that pays teachers as if they were second-class citizens is not going to have the professionals it needs to deliver a first-class education, not for long. We know that investing in our students pays dividends, but look at the direction our state has taken. We are literally putting the future of students at risk when we so drastically cut the resources for teachers to do their jobs. And the fourth challenge I want to bring to your attention is this growing distrust of educators to do what is right. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the work of Diane Ravitch, the professor at New York University who's pretty well known in education circles as a speaker and a blogger. She's an education historian and an author of several books, most recently one called Reign of Error. and she worked as a top aide in the education department under President George H.W. Bush during the time of the beginnings of No Child Left Behind. But she has had a complete change in mind about public schools and what will help or hurt them. Professor Ravitch writes powerfully about the rise of educational policies and programs that are built on the belief that educators can't be trusted to do what's right for the children in our schools. These policies affect schools in nearly every state, including Virginia, and the onslaught continues. Just last year, for example, the General Assembly passed 2 laws demonstrating this fact. One of them calls on the state to rate every school in the Commonwealth with a letter grade 8F. Now, I want you to know that the current Virginia Department of Education provides volumes of data about circumstances and outcomes of every public school. Each school, they can tell you how good the attendance figures are, how many students are on free and reduced lunch, what the test scores say, and so on and so on. But some of our legislators down at the General Assembly thought what lower-ranking public schools, which are mostly in poor communities, what they really need to perform better is to be shamed by being labeled with a D or F. And the other new law you may have read about created a new state entity, the Opportunity Educational Institute, or OEI, to serve as some kind of new state-run school board for schools that are deemed a failure. Once again, this so-called reform seems based on faulty propositions. It assumes that local school boards don't know what their problems are, or know them but have no clue how to solve them. Worse, this new OEI would completely remove the jurisdictions of these schools from the local leaders and the communities that know them best. We believe the approach taken in this law is unconstitutional, and as many of you may know, the Norfolk School Board has filed a lawsuit, which many other school boards across the state are supporting, concerning the unconstitutionality of the OEI. We believe that it is a gimmick that will not address school quality in the Commonwealth. Fortunately, this year's General Assembly is taking a dim view of legislation passed last year and has passed a two-year delay of the grade of schools A to F bill law. What becomes of OEI is not certain, but based on what both the House and the Senate are looking at, they're preparing to cut its funding to maybe as much or as little as $150,000 if it gets any money at all. So we do face significant challenges, but the members of VEA are committed to do what's best we can to bring about change where we can and to deliver high quality instruction to our students. I want to shift gears now because there is a bright side to teaching, and I certainly wouldn't want to scare off those of you who are considering joining our great profession. The most promising aspect of teaching now and in our future remains constant: the chance to make the difference in a child's life. To spark a young person's interest in biology or literature when that seemed, shall we say, improbable, and to see that excitement when the light bulb goes off. It's to stand back with pride and awe as a student displays confidence and mastery, and you know in your heart that your teaching and coaching helped him or her reach that level. You know, the folks that do the so-called research on the millennials say that one of the characteristics of these young people is that they're cause-oriented and mission-driven. In other words, they're looking for a job that satisfies a greater sense of purpose. Well, if that's the case, then we have a great opportunity to match the compassion, the passion, and the commitment to the mission of our new college graduates with the needs and opportunities in our public school system. Secondly, young people who are cause-oriented certainly ought to be attracted to the opportunity to push back against some of these forces that I spoke of early, and to build a true profession of teaching. One of the great strengths of the VEA is advocacy, and it's our own members advocating for the needs of their students and their schools who have the power to change education for the better. I'm very proud of all the trainings that we offer and the fact that so many leaders in our association point to the training and to those service opportunities as key to their development as teacher leaders. There have never been more roles and opportunities for teachers to fight for the needs of the students and their schools, to offer testimony to the local school board or a state hearing, to lead a study group on how to make testing a more sensible part of our education system, to sign an online petition, or even to take part in a demonstration. Peaceful, however, but a demonstration nonetheless. The possibilities are endless. New teachers, as well as those who have been in the classroom a few years, have a shot at truly reshaping the schools to be even more appropriate for the way that kids learn. We need to lead the movement because we have spent our careers learning how kids tick and reaching them every way we know how. Now, VEA is the Virginia's Teachers Union, and unions sometimes are being criticized for being opposed to new ideas and not being for change in our public schools. Well, we already know a lot of the solutions to the challenges that schools face. The problem is that society in the general is not fully supporting them. A few years ago, the Commonwealth Institute, which is a respected nonpartisan research organization, studied the most cost-effective changes that have the potential to raise student achievement. Each one was evaluated based on its effect and cost, and a measure of return on investment was calculated for each one. And I don't think you're going to be shocked at what they found. First thing that's effective, targeted class size reductions, which allows students to receive more individual attention and more than pays for itself in the outcomes you get. That's a no-brainer. We've been arguing for years that reducing class size is good for kids, and we know that parents want smaller class sizes as well. In fact, if you look at the way the most expensive private schools market themselves, what's their biggest selling point? Small classes. And students in our public schools deserve no less. A second research-proven reform: dropout prevention programs that keep students in school learning the skills they need. Again, not a brand new idea. There have been many different programs operating here and there for decades, but they're very effective, according to the Commonwealth Institute study, if we give them the support they need. Those are the kinds of research-proven practices that VEA supports, and we should all get behind them because there's no time to waste. In closing, I want to address something that I am sure you are familiar with that affects the men and women in Virginia public schools every day. There's a steady drumbeat of negative media reports about public school quality and the disparaging of teachers that needs to stop. The headline and the editorial writers toss around words like our failing public schools, as if that false and shorthand designation could somehow encompass the complexity of our public education system. Worse yet, some of our elected leaders seize upon this notion of public education as failing to attempt to impose their reforms on the schools while ignoring the expertise of those that work in them. I won't debate what does and doesn't constitute reform, but I do know that if we were going to undertake positive change in our public schools, those who work in the schools need to be involved in developing the solutions. Our members chose the teaching profession and to work in public schools because of their singular belief in the potential within each child, and have committed themselves to a life spent unleashing that potential. They've sacrificed pay and benefits they may have enjoyed in other careers and other fields. And each year, despite all that, they grow more accomplished at the vital work they do on behalf of Virginia's students. Teachers, secretaries, bus drivers, they're not the problem. They're part of the solution. And our leaders must recognize that if we are to make public education everything that it must be for the children of this Commonwealth. With that, I'd be happy to hear about your ideas and concerns as well as take any questions. But first, I'd be pleased to show you a short video that shows the impact that our public educators have on communities and on Virginia.
When a young child learns to read, when math starts to make sense, when a teacher inspires a student to reach higher, then everybody succeeds. Because what students learn while they are young forms the building blocks for their future success. And an education that helps students succeed helps the communities they live in as well. That's why, at the Virginia Education Association, we believe in the power of great public schools to help prepare our students for the future. Right now, Virginia's public schools are ranked among the best in the nation. This shows that our teachers, support professionals, and school officials are working together to provide quality education and a solid learning foundation for Virginia's students. But the future is less certain. Funding cuts at the state level for education have led to layoffs of teachers and support personnel, increased class sizes, and limited opportunities to update textbooks, classrooms, and technology. Most importantly, these funding cuts also limit the amount of time teachers can spend with each student. At the Virginia Education Association, we advocate for the proper funding of public schools, creating positive and effective learning environments, and providing high-quality instruction for all public school students. We are a professional association whose members consist of public school teachers and education support professionals, such as teachers' aides, bus drivers, nurses, and other positions. All our members are committed to providing a high-quality public school education for Virginia's students. So what can you do to help? Start by saying no to school funding cuts at the state level. Support teacher salaries that are at least as high as the national average. And demand class sizes that allow all students to get the personal attention they need to succeed. Virginia's public schools are some of the best in the country, which helps our communities grow and prosper. At the heart of our schools are teachers and students working together to study, learn, and succeed. At the Virginia Education Association, we will continue to advocate for strong schools that benefit our students and help make our communities strong. Because a good education is good for everybody.
Sure. So now we enter into the conversational part of our evening, and I'm going to take the moderator's prerogative this evening. Madam President.
Yes, sir.
Sounds good, doesn't it? Yeah, right.
I can't imagine, people say that and I'm like, who are they talking about? Me? Really?
Well, Madam President, so we often say that everyone is a stakeholder of a public education. Mm-hmm. What would you say to those who have become disenfranchised, disassociated, uninterested, and apathetic about everything public education?
Engage. Get involved. Don't listen to hearsay and gossip. Get out and find out what's really going on. I mean, if you have time, volunteer in a school. Show up at school board meetings, board of supervisor meetings. Read from different sources, just not one of your favorite newscasts. Get the facts. Realize that unfortunately, in the 21st century, American media, one way or the other, is all about spin. It's all about message. Find out what's the truth behind the message and get involved. and maybe down the road, run for office. School boards need good people. Board of Supervisors, city councils need good people. And I know the General Assembly could use some good people. But get involved. Pay attention. Yes, we're all busy, but these are our kids. This is our community. We need to engage in our community, not just pull back and go, it's those awful schools. Let's just, start over, find a new system. It's not true. There's always ways to grow and make improvement, but people need to be involved for that to happen.
Thank you. There are microphones being held by our assistants. So ladies and gentlemen, it's open to you for questions. Madam President.
This is a fun time for me.
One here in the third row.
So this is similar to the question that was just asked, but what would you say to people who are inside the system, who are completely dispirited with the way things are going? I know my mom's a public school teacher, and so many of her friends are just, what would you have to say to them?
Probably the same thing, only maybe a little blunter if we were in the faculty lounge. You only have so much energy in a human being. You only have so much energy to spend. And to me, you can spend that energy being upset about a situation and complaining about it. And if you'll pardon me, some of my colleagues that I've worked with whine about it. And I look at them and say, let's take 15, 20% of that energy and let's work to a solution. We're not looking at a person, we're looking at a group of people, your mom and all her friends and all her colleagues. And maybe we won't be successful the first time. I've always described being in Virginia and dealing with change in Virginia is you have to beat your head against the brick wall just after a couple years to start to get the mortar to move. But if it's important enough to complain about, it should be important enough to put some passion behind it and do something about it. That's what I'd tell them. And I'd say, don't be afraid. There's a lot of you. They're not going to fire you all. They can't afford to replace you. Don't even, that's the biggest worry. Oh, I'm going to be fired. No, you're not. You're still allowed to talk about what's best for your kids and keep the focus on what's good for your kids. Because if it's good for your students, it's going to be good for you as a teacher, too.
What do you see as the role of the administrator, the building and the principal in setting the tone, reaching out, cooperation?
I think our administrators in our public schools have a tremendous burden to shoulder because the teachers are at the bottom, so everything rolls downhill to the bottom. And there's a lot rolling down to the administrators first, but I think part of their professional responsibility, the best principals I ever worked for were the ones who looked at the pressure that was rolling on them and saying, I'm not passing that along. I don't believe in it. I'm not passing that along. I'm going to figure out a way to get around it. I'm not going to overstress my staff. And I can say from, myself and some of my colleagues, when we had principals like that, when they wanted something from us, it was, sure, what do you want? How fast do you want it? And I'll do anything you want. Because we knew they supported us. And if they were asking, it was something they really needed and was important. So, we kind of need that middle layer to sometimes turn around to their bosses and go, can't do that to my staff right now. And I think, so they have a tremendous pressure, and I try to tell that to some of my teaching colleagues, is to think about what's being, they're pushing on you. You have to push back a little, but give them support so they can take care of you. Because I don't think a lot of the good, really, really good principals, the stuff that's coming to them, they know it's wrong. They know it's not good for kids and it's not good for their faculty. And that's why, as in my role, working with the Superintendent's Association, the School Board Association, the Elementary and the Secondary Principals Association, working with them on, legislative issues and whatever, And we try to, and I try to, gently tell them that. You've got to tell your administrators and your principals and tell the superintendents to stop pushing so much on them, because it's all coming down on the teacher, and that in turn is going to affect the kids in the classroom.
Hi.
Hi.
My mom was an active member of the Virginia Education Association for many, many years, and she just wanted me to pass along that she's loving under your leadership how many initiatives you're beginning and how much you're supporting Virginia schools, and I just wanted to say thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I really, really appreciate that, and I'm glad I didn't have to pay for that one. But thank you.
Here's it, front second row.
Shortcut that mic.
Thank you. I was wondering when to ask my question. I think it follows well after that question there. I think your fourth challenge was the problem that the educators are under fire themselves. Mm-hmm. You mentioned the teachers and the evil teachers unions.
Oh, God, yes.
And thank you for sparing the third part of that. The teacher educators
yes.
are under fire too.
Well, yeah, it's climbing up there.
But you defended the teachers well, but perhaps out of modesty you didn't say much about the VEA and teachers unions. And I worry all these young people here tonight who are going to be teachers, and they hear how evil the mm-hmm. teachers unions are. Could you spend a few minutes telling them
Sure.
what you have to offer for them and why they should be members of the VEA?
Boy, that's a really broad question. I think the major thing is we listen, we give you a voice. You can't, when you're in the classroom dealing with you can't be at the State Board of Ed dealing with the standards of accreditation and the regulations on class size. You can't be in the General Assembly every day talking against bad bills, trying to get good bills passed. And as much as so many of our people today don't like politics, public ed runs on tax money. It's politics. I think that's one of the things. We also offer a tremendous amount, as I kind of alluded to in here, we do a tremendous amount of training, not just in leadership skills, but we have an instructional and professional development conference every fall. And one of the things that I've been initiating more and more of is that our own members need to take leadership in these areas and come teach other teachers, what their specialties are. And then I could get into the fact that, when you have a big number together, it's really important. The membership sets the policy and tells me what to do, which I'm fine with. And of course, when you have bigger numbers, then there's member discounts, cheaper insurance, cheaper travel, cheaper all the good things to get your dues money back. But I think it's primarily to look at this as a support group, as an advocacy group. To me, VEA and all my years in this, I have people that I can call up anywhere in the state to talk about anything. It doesn't have to be a school issue. I've got family everywhere. And I think that's what we do when we come together as an advocacy organization. Call us an association, call us a union. Why is a union a dirty word? Define union. It's a group of people who come together for a common cause. Our cause is public education, our students, and our profession. The press can slander us all they want, and talk about, those horrible teacher unions. And it's all those union thugs. I taught in a classroom for 32 years. I can be thuggy, I guess, if I had to, but I'm not. It's all, again, that spin, because they don't want to acknowledge that the people who are in the unions, who are driving the unions, who are advocating for the students, are teachers. Yes, we have some hired staff. We have some wonderful UNISERV directors and professional staff, most of which who were teachers first, or support professionals. It's all, you can think of us as a big sorority or fraternity. If you want, we just don't do the cakers. After a while, you get too old for that. Yes, sir.
I may add to that, I think it's fits in well with what you're saying. I have difficulties when the VEA, all the stateless associations are called unions. I'm from the old time, so we were the Virginia Education Association, and you use the word professionals.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow, through the recent years, that has disappeared, and union has kind of everything to do, I think you said something like we become clerks.
Mm-hmm.
And the public is bought into that. And the legislators and the so-called business leaders don't really connect today the way the communities did at one time with the professionals.
Mm-hmm.
I just hurts me so much when teachers or educators are not seen as professionals.
Mm-hmm.
My own son was a mathematics teacher. His wife was a science teacher. They both left education for probably two main reasons: salary and the number of hours they spent with SOL
Yes.
records. And so I was all teaching, just couldn't tolerate the extreme.
You're correct, and I try not to be too cynical as time goes on, but the catchphrase to that is follow the money. You have too many people in this country who want to figure out how to get their hands on all the tax money that goes into public schools and how they can use it to build a business. You see it in the testing companies.
What about the money that Virginia spends for these big testing companies?
Exactly. And literally, we have been trying to find out, not just me, but the whole educational family, the superintendents, school boards, and so on. We can't get a direct answer as to how much money goes into the testing program because it's not all in one line item. But it's all about, and free market doesn't have to be bad, but it has to be in check. There are some things that should be done by government, to me, to the public good. And what's more important than educating our children, to be able to be successful adults? But it really is becoming all about the money. It's easier to give a tax break to a corporation than to ask them to pay a little more or more of what some people might consider their fair share to invest in our public schools. And until we have more and more citizens who engage and get involved and say, nope, this is what I want. This is what I want for my community. And it isn't the tax break for the company. You've got all these people that are having trouble, making ends meet, and you hear things on the news about, $10 million bonus to the president, CEO of this company. When is I'm sorry, I'm getting on my personal soapbox here, but when is too much money too much? If you've got $1 billion, does it really matter if you have $5 billion? Yes.
Question front row, and then we'll come to you, or wherever the mic is.
Off topic.
Sure.
Because I'm a nursing major, so I'm just wondering when it comes to legislation concerning children or their medical issues with children, would you get to work with the
Yes.
Nurses Association?
Yes, we do. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we definitely work with the Virginia Nurses Association. There were a couple bills this year that dealt with diabetic students, and we work with them on that to make sure that children's needs were being met. But the original bills basically were turning more classroom teachers into nurses, and we really don't want your job. No offense. We'd go that way if we wanted to. So yeah, we work with VNA all the time.
Second row.
I think I could speak loud enough you could hear. I'm a former kindergarten teacher, and it really concerns me that it's getting to the point, or seems to be, where children are not taken from where they are when they come to you but you're giving a list of things you have to do with them regardless of their readiness level. And I don't think developmentally children have changed that much in 100 years. I know they're all can do with the computers and stuff like that, but as far as being ready to read, ready to do math, there are certain stages they have to go through. And we used not to even teach reading in kindergarten. We had something we used, I think it was the Santa Clara readiness skills, and you had to go through auditory discrimination, memory discrimination, visual, and if they could do those skills, fine, run with them. But some children did come reading, they got to go ahead and read, but they were developmentally ready, and that's a real concern. We heard, Jim and I heard a discussion on that in the radio last year on a trip last week about some of the things they're required to learn, and it just doesn't make sense to me. Who's coming up with these things?
Sometimes it's the legislators, sometimes it's the whole perception, again, doing the standardized testing, that when you look at, TIMS, or you look at some of those national tests, that the U.S. isn't number one in the testing range. And so obviously we're not tough enough on our kids, so therefore we must give them, God, the dreaded word, more rigor. And that rigor is becoming exactly what you've described. You have kindergarten children, that aren't ready to read. But I would say the same things from my perspective dealing with high school and upper middle school, that now, well, if you're not taking Algebra 1 in 7th or 8th grade, and I'm like, they're still concrete thinkers. Why are you trying to make them take algebra? It makes no sense. They're not ready. Well, then we're not rigorous. No, we're not meeting the needs of our individual students. We're losing the individualization of what's best for our students to meet, to me, this artificial, press-related, here's where the U.S. scores. And they never get into talking about, well, when you look at where the U.S. scores, actually statistically, yeah, we're 10th or we're 15th or whatever, but did you see how few points separate 2 and 15? It's like they're all in a straight line. But it's all that spin, and I go back to follow the money, to privatization. I hate to be that cynical, but it seems that that's where the track is going. We need to have private charters. We need to have this company come in, because the teachers can't do it. But yet, anywhere that they've tried that, it's never worked. Yeah, we can tie into, well, Virginia can't have vouchers constitutionally, so we have tax credits. We got around the Constitution by calling it a different name. With the guys that, again, another way to privatize. It's that first step into that. And when you look at the amount, which I can't remember off the top of my head, that a parent could be eligible to get for a voucher, it's not sending them to the top-notch private schools. And what it's doing, it's creating what I call a market for strip mall schools, where there's no accountability, you don't know who's running the school, you don't know what they're teaching in there, but they're allowed to get tax money, where we have no say as taxpayers what they're doing with it. But they'll make money on it.
I think we have time for one more question.
There's one back there.
We'll take 2.
Okay.
Is that okay, Madam President?
Oh, sure. I said this is the fun part.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks for taking my question. So as new educators, we are very aware of the conversations and struggles surrounding educational funding, equity, and assessment. Mm-hmm. And particularly at Longwood, we're taught to teach through the test and to do our best despite these challenges. Obviously, the focus is on students. What, if any, role do you think that students should play in this conversation? Should they be aware of these challenges?
I think it depending on their age level, yes, I think they should. I think you're seeing it's a slow kind of creep across the country where you're starting to see, Virginia actually came on faster, and glad we came on a little faster than we had, but if you watch what has happened in like Seattle, Washington, you've seen what's happened in Texas, you're seeing primarily the high school students are saying, this isn't what I need. And I think, not to rile up anybody on campus, President, I promise, but I think that's something that you, as current students who if you went through Virginia public schools and did all those SOL tests, how much did that prep you for what Longwood requires of you? Nah, I can answer that for you. Tell people that. It's okay. I'm being successful. I'm figuring out how to work around it, but you didn't do what you promised me, and that was to get me career and college ready. And I'm going to tell you who to tell. I'm going to tell your legislators. You're going to tell whoever your delegate and your senator is. This isn't prepping me. Now, like I said, we're getting some motion there. We're slowly getting some motion in there, at least as far as reducing testing in 3.8. And we have a committee that's in that law that will be coming online to deal with the whole look of high school. What are the graduation requirements? They said they wanted to cut testing in high school, and I said, but they still have to have verified credits. You just took away their choices. You didn't take away testing. You got to look at verified credits. You got to look, is that the way you really want to do high school now in 2014? But it's the most thing you can do is just tell your story. Tell your experiences. This is what's worked, this is what didn't work.
We have a question in the second row.
Go ahead.
I really don't have a question, I have a comment. And I think that our nation is suffering from voter empathy, especially in Virginia. And I hope that you've helped people realize how important it is that they study the issues, know the issues, and look at the candidates that are running for office and really pay attention to the candidates and the issues, and then go out and vote.
Absolutely. If I had Lady Luck's magic wand, besides hitting the lottery, the other thing I would do is I would get away with the party system. Just think, if you didn't know if they were Republican or Democrat. Ever, you couldn't use those words. You couldn't align yourself with a party or that Republican or Democratic union, because it's a group of people with a certain goal. And you actually had to look at, especially if they're incumbents, how did they vote on issues? You know what they're going to say during election time. They're going to say whatever anybody wants to hear. But what's been their voting record? How have they really responded? And what have they really done? But as I had one very close Republican delegate tell me, he goes, well, it's never going to happen, but if I could do it, I would. And he was a staunch Republican and said the same thing. We need to the only way we get people engaged is we make them have to be engaged. So part of our mission with educating our members is giving them facts and saying, candidate A voted this way, this guy voted this way, this guy voted this way, this woman voted this way, and you make up your mind. But here are the facts. Don't look at those labels.
Well, President Gruber, I would like to give you this gift on behalf of all of us here at Longwood University. Thank you so much for coming.
I'm very happy.
We appreciate you being here. I wanted to give you a reminder about March 27th at 7 p.m. right here in Weigel Hall. The Longwood Leadership Forum continues with Dean King, author of The Feud, The Hatfields and McCoys, The True Story. And I would like to say once again, thank you all for coming, and safe travels to all of you this evening as you return home. Thank you.